EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365. We are officially here, ladies and gentlemen. The season is upon us today. The journey of the 2024 NFL season begins. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning?
We're here. We're finally here. We finally made it. List season, not quite done. We're going to talk about some lists, but yeah, at least we're going to have actual football activity to speak of moving forward.
Everybody's squeaking their last-minute list in there, Johnny Mac, before everybody gets back to camp. I got some countdowns. I want to give everybody our countdowns of where we are in the offseason. Boys, it's exciting, John. I am very excited to get back to the season. We have officially, everybody, 0 days to training camp. The Eagles report today. They will be on the first media availability and open practice will be tomorrow. So Johnny Mac will be down there for that. But so 0 days till training camp. 9 days away from the open practice at Lincoln Financial Field. So all you fans, if you guys are going to that, I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat. 9 days away from the open practice. 44 days away from the NFL opener. And 45 days away from Eagles versus Packers in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Ooh, Johnny Mac, it's so close I can almost taste it, that opening game.
Yeah, you're closer than me. It's still far away for me from my perspective.
45 days, man.
I wish we can get right to the season, but you got to go through. You got to prepare as best you can. So this will start the process, and a lot of interesting questions in Eagles training camp. I think less than most teams, which is always a good thing. I think competition, obviously is very interesting, but I think the more positions where you have competition is probably a bad thing. If you're an NFL team, you want guys who are obviously leading their particular positions, and the less question marks you have is probably the better. And I don't think you see it. We talk about it all the time. Right guard, wide receiver 3 on offense, a little bit more on defense. But I think that's a good thing when you don't have a ton of competition.
Yeah, so we'll see how it all plays out. Tons of great storylines heading into the year, heading into training camp here. We'll talk about it all. We got 2 great guests planned for you guys today. We have Bill Colarulo, Big Bill, coming up in hour number 1. So he'll be in around 14 minutes from now at 8:20 a.m. And then at 9:20 in the hour number 2, we will have Scott Grayson from Fox 29, who does great work. So haven't talked to Scott in a little bit. It'll be great to get his perspective. So a full show planned for you today. And then a programming note, everybody. Very important. I get this out there. Very important. You guys know this, all of our loyal fans. Tomorrow morning, Johnny Mac will be heading down to NovaCare. Everything. It's the first day. So he's got media, credentials, all sorts of stuff to deal with in the morning. So we will do our Birds 365 tomorrow and Thursday at 6 to 8 p.m. So we will do it out of the National Football Show. It'll be a nighttime edition of Birds 365, something we've never done since the start of the show, but different times, different measures. We will be doing 6 to 8 p.m. We want to make sure we give you guys 2 hours of footage of content. And to be honest with you, I feel better about doing it that way because then we get John's fresh perspective on being down at practice. So 6 to 8 p.m. everybody tomorrow. Mark it in your calendars. Twiz, good idea. I will pin that in the chat. That Birds 365 will be 6 to 8 p.m. tomorrow night, and then back to our regular scheduled programming on Friday, 8 a.m. in the morning. And then the other thing to note is I will do something tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Johnny Mac can't tomorrow because of the media stuff. He has to get down there extra early for the first day. And Thursday, we will do something together, 8 a.m. Even if it's just a 30-minute quick preview, we will do something in the morning so that you guys who are loyal here at 8 a.m. every day have something. So just a programming note. Remember that, everybody. Birds 365, 6 to 8 p.m. tomorrow and Thursday. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate each and every one of you. Dank, Smile, Ryan, James, Ray, Chan, Callie, Suplex, all of our loyal listeners. We appreciate you all for being here. all through the summer. We made it, everybody. Drop a like on the show. Johnny Mac, let's dive in. I wanted to talk about the NFL did their top 100. We'll start there. We got 2 players, your favorite, Saquon Barkley and Devontae Smith.
I hate that. Boy. You
What's
know,
that?
I hate, I don't blame you. Everybody does it.
Yeah.
My favorite
blame me for
Saquon
that one.
Barkley. I think it was funny because we have 2 Saquon Barkley truthers today. And Scott's probably going to be in that category as well. But I would say Zander's a Saquon truther. I would say Bill Colarulo is definitely a Saquon truther. And I'm considered a Saquon hater. But I asked both of you guys what you expect out of Saquon Barkley, and I expect more out of Saquon Barkley. I expect he's going to do more than Zander, Krause, and Bill Colarulo. But I'm the hater. I'm the hater because of the way I frame it. And I think just people are unrealistic. And it's ironic. You and Bill aren't unrealistic. But yet you still think I'm the hater.
No, I don't think you're the hater. I've just now used the voice of the people who have made it known that they don't like Johnny Mac's takes.
Which is the perfect example of why people hear what they want to hear.
Yeah, I know.
Now, back to the hating. I mean, it's absurd. This list is absurd. I've explained it. I'm in the locker room every year when they do it locally. The players spend about 10 seconds on it. There's a few exceptions that give it a decent amount of thought. But for the most part, it's a popularity contest. But getting that out of the way, boy, even you started off, not that Saquon doesn't belong on the list, he belongs on the list. And that's, by the way, a bad sign because he's got so much respect from his peers from an athletic standpoint. He's usually rated above where he should be. So, being down in the 80s wherever he was is probably not a good sign. But
I think it was 86. Yeah, 86 for Saquon.
Yeah. But if you're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, and Ed Kratz and I did our top 25 at SI.com. Everybody can check that out heading into training camp. SI.com/NFL/Eagles. Are you kidding me? Devontae Smith isn't ahead of Saquon. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I agree with you on this, John.
I mean, come on. There's an example of reputation over reality. Right off the bat. So, if that's hating, so be it. But Devontae's probably too low on the list. Saquon's probably right where he should be overall.
Well, if Saquon and Devontae are the first guys that come in on the Eagles, and they only did the countdown, I don't know what they did it up to, 90 or 85 or wherever they went to. How many more Eagles are going to make the list? I think there's going to be Lane Johnson will be on there. I think A.J. Brown will be on there. Jalen Hurts will probably be on there. It could be a bunch of Eagles coming in on the top 100 NFL players. I know it doesn't mean too much, but hey, it's good. It's a good little hype. It's a good little hype as we start training camp, Johnny Mac, for the people. I can tell there's some extra energy in the chat today. So we appreciate everybody in there. And then, John, who was the other outlet we discussed pre-show? Was it USA Today?
Well, before I get to USA Today, because it'll frame it in. PFF did their top 50, which to me is more relevant. Now, this is not a good. They just tweeted out their top 10 players in the NFC. And I retweeted. Everybody wants to go to my X account at JF McMullen. 5 49ers. 5 49ers.
On the top 10?
On the top 10 of the NFC. 1 Viking, which is Justin Jefferson. 2 Cowboys. 1 Giant, which is Dexter Lawrence, and I kept telling people he's the best player on the New York Giants, and 1 Eagle. And the Eagle is number 10 overall, Lane Johnson. So it goes Trent Williams, number 1, Justin Jefferson, number 2, Micah Parsons, number 3, Nick Bosa, number 4, Fred Warner, number 5, Christian McCaffrey, number 6, And boy, it's pretty good when Christian McCaffrey's your fourth best player. I don't agree with that, but that's
Yeah,
where he is. Dexter Lawrence is number 7. George Kittle is number 8. CeeDee Lamb is number 9. Lane Johnson, number 10. And by the way, AJ is the best player on the Eagles. So, but Lane's second, where we had Lane second at SI. But there you have it. So nationally, I think it's ironic. I think there's been a little bit of a hit to the expectations. And then I was bringing up USA Today. They did their win projections. And they had the Eagles. Good news, bad news here. They're going to win the NFC East, but they're only going to be 10-7. So take it as you wish.
If you're 10-7 and you win the NFC East, then you have new life, John. You have a chance at the playoff. Look, I appreciate the regular season, obviously, and I know it's very important, and I know I projected 13 wins, but I've always had the mindset, get into the playoffs. Once the playoffs start, it's a new season. It's a new year. It's a new opportunity to start 0-0 and make your run. You can get in and you can upset some people. It's any given Sunday, right? And
that's right. That's the Andy Reid philosophy.
Shit. I mean, we're in the playoffs. We can make something of that. And I'm not too upset at that. 10 wins. I think they're going to do a little better than 10 wins, but 10 wins is still good too. That's double-digit wins. That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. I have them at 11, so it's right. And know, with the Jody Mack trademark exercise, if I go up, you got to go up 1 or go down 1. I'm going down 1, so I don't have a problem with it. I think that's where they are. I think there's going to be some hiccups early in the season, and I think they're going to right the ship a little bit later. New coordinators, all that kind of stuff. Jalen Hurts learning another new system. I think there's going to be some struggles. Young defensive backs, communication, Vic Fangio defense, linebackers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't have a problem with the projection, and I'm with you. That's the whole Andy Reid philosophy. Get consistently good, get to the dance, and if the stars align and you're playing well at the end of the season, like what did 10-1 get you last year? Not much. Maybe you start, people are going to be upset, but if you're 6-4, and you start to play better, you get to 11 or something of that nature, you're better heading into the playoffs, most likely.
Yep, no doubt about it. So I'm all right with that. I think they'll be a little better than 10, like I said. But if they're 10 and they win the NFC East, shit, I'll live with that. John, I want to go back to the 10 players in the NFC you mentioned, which is interesting from PFF. I actually don't have too much of a problem with most of this list. There is a couple things I don't like about it, but Trent Williams at number 1. Okay, I mean, he's going to be that guy. He's that good of a player. Maybe he's going to take a small step back at some point here in the future. He is getting older. Justin Jefferson's fine at 2. Micah Parsons fine at 3. Nick Bosa 4. Fred Warner 5. McCaffrey 6. I'm pretty good with all them. I'm even good with Dexter Lawrence 7. 8, 9, and 10 is probably where
I'm not good with. I think Dexter was 7 at one point. I think they went too high on him. You're right about Trent Williams. At some point, you're going to have the downtick, but we haven't seen it. Same thing with Lane.
That's why I'm kind of surprised Lane is down at 10. I think Trent's a better tackle than Lane. Well, he also is the left tackle, which I think is in the NFL world, it's viewed as the more valuable tackle for, because it's most quarterbacks blindside. But I think Lane Johnson's right there in terms of play. I think Trent's a little better, but I don't think it's like a big gap between Trent Williams and Lane Johnson. Do you?
Yeah, well, that's relative. I mean, Trent Williams is the best.
I agree.
Offensive lineman of his generation. First ballot Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. Maybe the most dominant player, really dating back to his days in Washington. So, and a lot of people didn't know it because it wasn't a great team, but he's been a great player for a long time. I don't have, it's not an insult to say you're not Trent Williams. Lane's, in the conversation to be right behind him. I would say that. The list, I think the problem, I have no problem with anybody else on the list, except you can argue AJ is better than CD.
Yeah,
or
that's where I was
vice
going.
versa.
You have Kittle too at 8. You think? Look, I know
Yeah,
Kittle's
Kittle's
great.
phenomenal.
I know,
Kittle's
but you
phenomenal.
think so you think AJ Brown isn't as good as George Kittle? I know they're different positions.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
I'm taking
they're
AJ Brown. If I have players lined up, if I'm going back to recess in grade school, and you're picking players off the wall, I'm picking AJ Brown over George Kittle all day, all day.
Yeah,
All day.
I think I would focus on CD more than George. I mean,
I think my point is, though, I think he's better
it
than
depends
both.
on the rules. Obviously, if you're playing in the
Yeah.
plate, you want a receiver. I mean, yeah, George is like one of the only guys who can dominate as a flex receiver, dominate as a blocker. I talk about the luxury the Eagles have with their tackles. Well, it's also a luxury to have a tight end that can hold up in pass protection or can set the edge in the run game. And there's about 2 guys on the planet that can do it. And George is one of them. So
I
I know
why I'll take Brown though. Here's George Kittle's stat line from the Super Bowl. Two catches for 4 yards.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. You're taking one outline. If you take Super Bowls, Eli Manning's better
about when the lights are the brightest, Johnny Mac.
Eli Manning then is better. Eli Manning, that's the dumb argument where people say Eli Manning's better than Tom Brady or Tim Smith or guys who've had big Super Bowls.
That's not what I'm saying.
By that measure, Corey Clement may be the best running back in Eagles history because he performed in the Super Bowl.
No, I'm just saying when the lights were bright, Kittle wasn't there and AJ was.
Consistently over a long portion of his career, and that's what PFF is about. George Kittle's a great, great player. I'm saying, look, if you ask me, and I can go back to when the Eagles got AJ, because I knew he was good. I didn't know how good. And I had him right in the bottom of the top 10 receivers in the NFL. And I remember having this discussion with Jody, and I had CD ahead of him. Now, a lot of that had to do with where he was playing and the traffic and all that kind of stuff. And now that he's gotten here and I see him every day, now I'd put AJ over CD. Now, if you asked a Dallas reporter, John Machota, somebody we have on the show, he'd probably say CD's better because he gets to see him every day. So there's a little bit of they're both great. And I think if you put AJ at 9 and CD at 11 or vice versa, I don't have a problem with it either way. But that would be my stronger argument. George Kittle's a Hall of Fame player. I have no issue with that. The bigger issue I have with Dexter Lawrence, because I think he's descending from where he was. I think at one point he belonged on the list. I don't think he belongs on the list right now. But I think it's interesting that on the NFC side, on their top players, not one quarterback, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, if you did the AFC, it'd probably be all quarterback.
Exactly.
All right, Johnny Mac, let's get to our first commercial break. We got Bill Colarulo in the waiting room. I am excited to talk to Bill. The season is upon us. 0 days to camp. Eagles reporting today. So we are here. James Carver drops us a big super chat. James, thank you, brother. I know you said read it later on when you're back in the show. Just drop a comment, James, and we will go to your super and we will discuss that. 1999, James Carver drops a super chat. Thank you, brother. We appreciate that very much and appreciate everybody in the chat. Make sure you guys like the show. Big crowd already here this morning, so we appreciate all of you. Let's get to our first commercial break. Bill Colarulo coming up next on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back, everybody, to Birds 365, a Tuesday edition camp reporting day, everybody. The Philadelphia Eagles have officially reported to training camp for the 2024 season. Big Bill, it's here, brother. How you feeling on this Tuesday?
Finally, it is
right
here.
Yeah,
Gives us something to talk about. My God, how much are we going to talk about last season's collapse for the last 4 months? I can't wait
know,
to turn
You're
the page.
telling us, man. We know better than anybody.
Jesus. So finally, it's here. I'm excited.
All right, I'm going to start you off with a tough one, but what the hell? You can handle it, Bill.
Oh, boy.
So I want you to try, and it's difficult, but try to go back to the Eagles entering free agency. And I want you to take coaching out of the equation because we can talk about Nick Sirianni and what they did to him or the upgrade in coordinator. So I want to put that to the side. I want to talk just about the talent assembled by Howie Roseman because I think a lot of people gave Howie his flowers in the offseason. Do you think this is a better football team from a talent perspective than when they entered free agency? Because remember, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick, gone. Players like that. Where's Bill Colarulo just from the talent perspective?
That is a tough question, John. You're not even going to ease me in. I haven't even had my coffee yet today. That is a tough question. I'm going to say yes, but not by much because of the names that you mentioned, because you did lose Reddick, Cox, and Kelsey. However, I do think you've upgraded from talent. I think your running back is more talented. And I like DeAndre Swift, but I think your running back's more talented. On defense, I certainly think the back seven should be more talented. Last year, you came into the season with Terrell Edmonds and Justin Evans as potential starters at safety. Well, now you bring in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who I think is a lot more talented. I'm expecting Reed Blankenship to be better because I'm also factoring that in. I think these guys are going to take a leap forward. You could say the same thing about the offensive line. Landon Dickerson, Jordan Mailata should be better this year than they were last year. And then you look at the linebacker room. I'm not sold on Devin White, but from a talent perspective, I think he's more talented than Nick Morrow, Zach Cunningham, or even Shaq Leonard, who joined the team late in the season. And then certainly your cornerbacks, you'd have to say are more talented. You have Isaiah Rodgers. You and I are both very high on Keely Ringo. I expect more from him in year 2. And now you've added the youngsters, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. So I think they are more talented, but it's not by much because of the names you mentioned that are no longer with the team.
Yeah, those are some big losses, as you pointed out. I mean, can't underestimate those guys. Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, even Hassan Reddick, who was one of the best pass rushers in the league in the last 2 years. Bill, let's go quarterback on you here as we start the year. It's a new campaign, an entirely new season for Jalen Hurts to show he's that MVP caliber QB he showed in 22. The question is, will Jalen Hurts return to MVP form in 2024? Why or why not?
I think he will. And if you remember, he was the front runner to win the MVP through week 12 last season.
Yes, he was.
So we all remember the collapse towards the end of the season, but I really didn't think things were that terrible with Jalen last year. Yeah, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't what he did in 2022, but you look at the final numbers and you look at the product he put on the field, I think a lot of that had more to do with the fact that I don't think he trusted the offense. I don't think he trusted the play calling. Turnovers were a major issue last season, going from 8 to 20. But what's funny is we talk about turnovers. You look at 2022 when he was the MVP, he fumbled the ball 9 times. They just recovered it a lot more than they did last season. He fumbled the ball 9 times last year too. So yet very similar from the fumble perspective. But I do think he's going to get back to the MVP that we saw 2022 to start 2023. And mainly because of Kellen Moore. I do have a lot of high hopes for Kellen Moore. John and I, we've talked about this before. I don't think Kellen Moore is going to try to force Jalen Hurts to fit Kellen Moore's offense like Kevin McConnell did to Josh Dobbs in Minnesota. I think what you're going to see is Kellen Moore build an offense to take advantage of what Jalen Hurts does well. And when you have an offensive coordinator that's going to do that with all the weapons that they have on offense, I'd be shocked if Jalen isn't in the conversation for MVP by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think, the turnovers and regressing back to the mean and getting back to that ball security, which Jalen Hurts has typically been very good at in his career. I think that alone solves a lot of problems. I really do. I've said that from the start. But I do think, NFL teams are relentless. And nobody's going to feel sorry for you, Bill, in this league. And look, it's now sort of a constant around the league that the Eagles have trouble with the blitz. And people are going to bring it until they figure it out. And to me, we talked about this a little bit past couple of days we've done the show. That's about on the field. That's about the players on the field. That isn't about, it's about the coaches from a preparation standpoint and getting the players prepared to handle that on the field. And that to me is going to be the biggest parts of Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier and this offense as a whole, getting Jalen Hurts comfortable enough to get off the default bubble screen or the vertical routes, get him into some more hot routes, get him into some easy solutions where you just move the chains. That to me is what the whole season is about. The evolution of Jalen Hurts as a quarterback. I don't care about MVPs. Sorry. I don't care about any of that. Evolution as a quarterback. And I know it's esoteric, but isn't that more important?
It is, but I think they kind of go hand in hand, because I think if Jalen Hurts is more of a general at the line of scrimmage, able to read defenses, get the right calls, get the audibles done if necessary, I think he's going to have more success. Because if you look last season, if they had answers for the blitz, would we be sitting here talking about Jalen Hurts' regression? He probably is dominating all season last year, because where they really struggled against the Giants, against the Bucks, was against the blitz, even though everyone knew it was coming. So I'm right there with you. It is on Jalen, but it's also on the coaches to get him ready, because the fact that, and I know Dallas Goedert has said, and we're trying to turn the page on last season, but I remember Dallas Goedert had said they did have blitz calls. They just didn't get into them at times in that Tampa game. It just, to me, knowing that Todd Bowles was going to blitz you, knowing that Wink Martindale was going to blitz you, and they didn't have any answers for it was shocking to me. And I thought that was a major indictment on not only Jalen Hurts, but Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni. And we love Jeff Stoutland. I do too. We love Jason Kelsey. I do too. They have to share in that responsibility as well. They're also aware of the blitz. They're also aware of pass protection. But I know that gets brushed aside, and it's Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni's fault. But the offensive line has to be to blame as well when you have those blitz protections not being put in place. But I'm with you. I want Jalen to become a better general at the line of scrimmage. Now, one thing that could help that we know Kellen Moore is going to utilize is the pre-snap motion. Makes it a lot easier to read the defense at times if you are running some motion. I mean, to make it in its most simplistic form, your receiver goes in motion and the corner goes with him. It's usually man coverage, right, John? I mean, it should be a little bit easier for him to pick up on what they're doing at times. But I'm with you. Jalen has to grow as a field general and be able to make the calls at the line of scrimmage that can really help this team get in and out of plays that may be troublesome.
You know, it's interesting with the motion aspect of it. And it was Jim Schwartz who kind of taught me that, and he called it either Jim liked eye wash. A lot of people like eye candy. Really, I do think that's a little bit overrated, especially with defensive coordinators like Vic Fangio. Now, luckily, the Eagles have them. But, you know, you might try to feign the quarterback into thinking it's man-to-man coverage if they're, and then sort of spin off into something different, which is basically Vic's whole philosophy to not give it up until post-snap. And there's other guys, and I've talked to Nick about this, and, you know, Phillip Rivers, one of the smartest quarterbacks of his generation, played whatever, 18, 19 years. He hated motion. He wanted the structure because he could read the defense properly by the formation, more than motion. And Sean McVay himself, the king of motion, the king, he's the guy. He calls it the illusion of complexity. Really, what you're trying to do with motion is fool the defense and test the eyes of the defense. Like you got a bunch of young cornerbacks, you know, they kind of lose their eyes and they lose their discipline, and all of a sudden you got a broken coverage. From the reading of defensive perspective, from everyone I've talked to, that's a little bit overrated. But bottom line is Jalen Hurts has got to be prepared better. So I think for the people that want to criticize the coaching staff, that's where you start. As Dallas said, oh, it's in the offense, but you got to get to it. And if you don't get to it, nobody knows it's in the offense. And that's where you get this mind-numbing, to me, Bill. I don't know how much you hear it on the radio, but to me, it's mind-numbing. Oh, you got to call a hot route. Nobody calls a hot route. It's built into the offense. The quarterback's got to get to it.
Well, I don't know. You probably saw Tom Brady. I guess it was about a month ago now.
Yeah, it was great. I talk about it all the time.
Yeah, talked about the most important thing with the quarterback is what they do before the ball's even snapped. That you should know if a play is going to be successful before the ball's even snapped. So, look, nobody ever questions Jalen's work ethic. I know last season there were conversations about they wanted him to be a better leader. That's been talked about this offseason. But we know the guy is a relentless worker. So I expect him to really dive into this offense and do the things that you're talking about. And that is probably the most important storyline of the season for the offense, because it's not talent. We know they're talented. It's going to be, how does Jalen Hurts handle learning Kellen Moore's offense, making it his own, and then being able to make the right calls when defenses blitz him, because the blueprint's out there now. The way to try to beat Jalen Hurts is do it the way they did at the end of the season when they had zero answers for it. But no, you look at the 49ers, though. I say the blueprint's out there. They didn't necessarily blitz him a lot.
No, well, Nick Bosa said make him play quarterback, which was kind of insulting.
Yeah.
That was very insulting.
which is, bullshit because the Eagles have had success against Nick Bosa before. Obviously, they didn't last year, but for the most part, Lane's kind of dominated him when they have played. So I thought that was unfair, but I think it is fair to point out, look, the guy has struggled with the blitz. And to your point, I wanted to bring that up about Jason Kelce. Look, Jason is not perfect. He's a human being. But you're not going to get better play from your center as far as calling pass protections than Jason Kelce. So I'm not going to go down that route. He's not going to have better this year. I guarantee you.
No, and trust me, this wasn't a shot at Jason Kelce as much as it was when you look at the offense. Yes, the primary responsibility is always on the quarterback, but that was an epic failure against the blitz across the board. It wasn't as if the offensive line or the coaching staff was doing Jalen any favors either. I mean, Jalen does need to get into the protections, but I didn't see anybody making changes, whether it was offensive linemen.
And that's Jason's responsibility, which I don't like in general because I want the quarterback to have it. And I think the Eagles are going to keep it with Cam Jurgens. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But in the case of Jason, look, if I'm assigning blame, he's the last on the list because I know what he brings to the table. And I know 95% of the time, maybe higher, he's going to do the right thing. Not say every time.
Look, I love Kelce. You can't say anything negative about Kelce. You'll get killed. I'll probably get attacked in the chat for this. But I do think that in this city, the people we love, we don't criticize.
Oh, of course.
Jason Kelce, as much as we love him, he was a leader on that team. So when we talk about how Nick Sirianni couldn't stop the bleed, Nick Sirianni's not a great coach. Well, what about the veteran leadership that we were supposed to have on that team? Jason Kelce was a veteran leader on that team. He couldn't stop the bleed either. So this is less of an indictment on Jason Kelce and just more on the fact of why I was in support of Sirianni coming back. I felt like there were a lot of factors at play last year for the team to have the collapse that they did. It wasn't just because they didn't have good leadership. They didn't have a great head coach. It wasn't just the OC. It wasn't just the DC. It wasn't because the defensive personnel was terrible. It wasn't just the Super Bowl hangover. I mean, all these things that I'm mentioning, I think are part of why it went the way that it did, but we do absolve some people that we love.
Yeah, no question. I talk about it all the time in Philadelphia. But with Jason, I'd be more like, all right, you get a big guy, Vita Vea, Linval Joseph in his days with the Giants and Vikings.
Yeah,
he struggled with those guys.
But
he always
did. We're never going to see another Kelce. He's the best. No. He's the best center we've ever seen. But when you do, I always just thought it was ironic that there's accusations made about Sirianni and Hurts and them losing the locker room and not being great leaders. But then it's, wait a second. We got two of the best leaders we've ever had for the Eagles franchise.
Yeah, Kelce, but that's Zander and I had this discussion, Bill. Zander, you remember this. I'm sorry. I think I called it bullshit. The whole locker room leadership, when they're 10-1, they got the best leaders in the NFL.
I'm with you, man. I'm
with
you.
Jason Kelce and Brandon Graham.
I said
only
the same
Jason.
thing.
Yeah. Lane Johnson.
And it was also same thing with Jalen.
Fletcher.
In 2022, when they're winning all these games, all the narrative was,
what a
how
leader.
stoic he is.
It's such bullshit.
He's not too high. He's not too low. And then when they lose games, it's like, we need emotion. We need emotion.
Yeah.
Winning cures all.
It's bullshit. It is
winning cures all,
absolute bullshit. The Eagles didn't lose those four guys, the core four, when they were 10-1. They were all in that locker room. They're the same guys. They didn't become bad leaders overnight. It's ridiculous. I mean, you win on the field. You don't win because you got the best leaders. Because the Eagles have had that group together, which is very rare in the modern NFL. If it was all just about leaders, they'd win all the time. But it isn't. It's absurd.
But the best part is we get to close the book on last year, John, because training camp is here, man.
Yes, it is, Bill.
That's the best part of today.
Bill, well, the last year resulted in coordinators going out the door and 2 new coordinators coming in. Now we have Kellen Moore, we have Vic Fangio as we approach the 2024 season. How bad will the growing pains be with 2 new coordinators? I mean, there's a lot of made of this in the NFL that when you get new coordinators, it takes time, especially in the modern NFL, Bill, where they're not doing 2-a-days and 3-a-days and all summer long. It's a short off season. They don't practice all that much. How bad will the growing pains be as we enter the year? How long could it take them to get to click on all cylinders?
I think there's going to be more growing pains for the offense than the defense. I think that the defense will be able to pick it up more. I just think that it's always harder to pick up a new offense. So that's what I'm thinking. And look, I'm not expecting to see a lot of these players in the preseason. I think that may make some fans upset, but I was looking at some of the schedule and the way it plays out. You open up your preseason against the Ravens. Well, they play the Ravens this year in the regular season. So we know Sirianni's obsessed with competitive advantage. I doubt you're going to see much they don't already put much in the preseason games. It's usually vanilla anyhow. Certainly would be against the Ravens. Then you have the joint practice against the Patriots. So you're not going to see them in the preseason 2 days later when you play the Patriots. They'll get most of the work in the joint practice. And then you have your final game against the Vikings. I don't know how much you'll see the starters there. So I'm with you. They're not going to have a lot of opportunities outside of these practices to instill the offensive game plans and play calling and all that. But I think the defense will be fine. When I say fine, I'm not expecting them to jump into a top 5 defense when you're 30th last season. But I think you'll see less growing pains with the defense, more growing pains with an offense where if Jalen Hurts is right, which I don't think he was, saying 95% new. I'm not expecting that much new.
I think he was talking about the terminology, which is probably 95% new.
And the way I read it too, John, was, and this would make sense to me, what they were implementing in mandatory minicamp was 95% new. Because why not take advantage of the minicamp to put a lot of the new stuff in? But that this season, you're not going to see a 95% new offense. They were just implementing a lot of new plays and terminology.
I don't even think there are 2 offenses in the NFL that much
that are
different.
95%.
Yeah, I mean,
it's all the same crap.
But
that's where I am. I think defense you'll see, because I think the defense will be able to make up for a lot just with talent and more short tackling than what you got last season. And I always just
they're playing the same scheme essentially.
Yeah, and I always think I just think it's easier with a defense to be able to pick up a new coordinator than it is for an offense. I just
they've also been running Vic's scheme for the last couple of years, so it's not like it's entirely new.
Now the one issue the defense is going to have is if you look at the first couple of games, or the first game at least against the Packers pretty much have same offensive coach in Matt LaFleur, same offensive personnel. They've added Josh Jacobs to the backfield. But
I think they downgraded in the backfield.
You like
I'm a big Aaron Jones guy. Big Aaron. When he's healthy. I mean, he destroyed the Cowboys single-handedly in the playoffs. But I didn't understand that.
If you look, it's going to be tough for the defense because, Green Bay is going to come out. Now, the offense may have success because they have a brand new defensive coordinator in Green Bay. So they're going through some change. Jeff Hafley, never been a DC in the NFL before.
Yeah, that was a weird hire. That was
Atlanta the next week. Similar. I mean, it's a whole new coaching staff, but they got new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator.
And then 38-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles. Don't forget that.
I do think they could be a sneaky, explosive team. I don't think they're going to win a shit.
Well, I think they will. It depends. You have to see how healthy Kirk Cousins is.
Yeah, it's true.
But the one thing Cousins should be able to do is they have a ton of weapons there. I mean, that was part of the reason that Arthur Smith was fired. He never could figure out how to take advantage of all these weapons. You have Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and yet it seemed like he never wanted to use any of these players.
Yeah, it's true.
A little bit of breaking news. It's breaking news time of year. 23 teams are reporting to camp today. Hassan Reddick is not one of them. He is not reporting to Jets camp, so everybody can get their apology letters sent to Howie Roseman in care of the Eagles.
Why would the Jets make that trade?
Desperation. I mean, Joe Douglas is GMing for his job, I'd like to term it, and they got to win football games. And eventually Hassan will be in. Man, they find you $50K. That's ballsy a day. And now you can't. Back in the old days, you could you could waive those fines. So you'd have these big long holdouts, and the teams, you'd finally get together with the player and just say, all right, we're going to waive the fines.
Yeah.
Well, they put it in CBA now. You can't waive the fines. That's how they eliminated most holdouts.
So this is bittersweet, though, John, because it makes you feel good about Howie Roseman's decision. But at the same time, we need him to play.
Well, you're not getting that.
Yeah, how many snaps do we need, Huff?
I think it was 70%, somewhere around 70%.
And he needs double-digit sacks again, right?
Yeah, you're not getting that pick. I mean, I didn't think you were getting that pick unless the Jets are incredibly stupid to begin with. And they may, you can make an argument they are. So that,
well, here's what scares me, though, about it. And look, who says it in the chat? Saquad says it in the chat. We're putting a lot of hopes on Bryce Huff.
I love Bryce Huff. I think
I do too.
A great player.
But here's what makes me nervous, John. I'm a big fan of Bryce Huff. I think that when you project like the Eagles are doing with him, they could have hit a home run. But the New York Jets had him there. They could have very easily kept him for $17 million a year. Instead, they make a trade for Hassan Reddick, who's already making 15, who wants to be paid more, who's older than Bryce Huff. It just makes me question, why not keep him in the building? If you're the Jets, why not keep Bryce Huff in the building? Because we're putting a lot of hopes on this kid, and I'm excited for him just like you are. But Rob Saleh's not a dumb guy when it comes to defensive players.
Yeah, I mean,
why let him out the door?
That might just be chalked up to being a better GM, Bill. I mean,
I
wasn't crazy about the Reddick trade when you talked about the future pick, but from the perspective of you get younger, you get cheaper. I mean, Howie made the right move from that regard, and that might be what it's chalked up to. Better GM play by Howie Roseman.
Yeah. From the standpoint, and remember, the Jets are worried about this season, nothing else, because Joe Douglas isn't going to be there if they don't win this season.
Yeah.
And they should.
But don't the Eagles? What you say, the Eagles need Bryce Huff to perform this season? I know they signed him for 3 years, but he needs to perform this year.
Yeah, he definitely needs it, and I think he will, but it is a projection. It's fair to point out. Hassan's not a projection. I think this might look bad for one season when Hassan eventually gets in for a couple reasons. One, he's still a good player. Two, the Jets are really talented on defense. None of this. They might be the most talented defense in the NFL. So he's going to have a tremendous supporting cast on top of it, helping him be that type of player. Whereas, Bryce is on a rebuilding defense as a player you got to count on for the first time. So maybe in the short term, it doesn't look as good, but then 2-3 years down the road, it's going to look really good. But, the argument from the people that hated the deal was that the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender right now and they should be going for it. And I get it, but I'm kind of torn on that because, the old adage, better to give up a player on a year early than a year late.
Yeah.
If you get younger, more cost effective, longer shelf life. Yeah, it's like Zander says, that's good GMing. But I think if you gave Vic Fangio the true serum, I think he'd say rather have Hassan Reddick for one season.
Yeah, I would have. But look, it's becoming clear, I guess, he wasn't going to play on the 1-year deal.
No.
So you were going to have to extend him.
Yeah.
And you might be. I'm still curious to see because Reddick's going to play this year. He's not going to sit out. So I'm curious to see what the end solution is if he does in fact get a extension, how much it's for. Because if the Eagles could have given him one additional year, maybe paid him 18, 19 million. But from what I understand, he wanted a lot more than that. But
he wants 25, 26. And we'll see. I don't think he's getting it.
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
But from the Eagles' perspective, it was about also, and you see this throughout the league, he performed for the Philadelphia Eagles. He did not perform for the New York Jets. And by that, I mean, he feels more disrespected by the Eagles not entering into those kinds of numbers than he will with the Jets. And the Jets will probably get that Band-Aid contract, 19, 20 million. They'll probably be able to get that done. I think it would have been more difficult for the Eagles to get that done.
Yeah,
He had one of the best defensive seasons in Eagles history during the Super Bowl season.
And he was arguably your best defensive player again last year.
He was, I would say. I mean, him or Fletch probably.
But hey, yeah, Howie's looking good right now. Let's hope that he made the right call with Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith on the edge.
Bill, last one for me. September 6th, the Eagles play the Packers in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Who's going to be the cornerback opposite Darius Slay on that game?
Oh, that is a good question. I'm going Keely. I think Keely Ringo. I think Keely Ringo wins that job. In fact, I was on last week on the best show ever, and me and Tyrone were battling about this because he was saying that if Quinyon Mitchell isn't the starting cornerback this season, that it's a wasted pick. And I was saying it's not a wasted pick if the reason he's not the starting cornerback is because Keely Ringo outplays him and the defense is a lot better. Now, if Quinyon Mitchell can't get on the field because he's not good enough and the defense is still struggling and you don't have any answers, yeah, Quinyon Mitchell maybe was a bad first-round draft pick. I'm not willing to rule that on this first season, though. But if Keely Ringo just simply beats him out and this defense is vastly improved, I'm okay with Quinyon waiting in the wings. And then next season, you probably move on from 34-year-old Slay at that point. And now you got Quinyon Mitchell and Keely Ringo on the outside, Cooper DeJean working in the nickel.
Boy,
I'm excited about that secondary.
This city is tough, man. At Bill Colarulo, by the way, make sure you follow Bill on X. I'm on Team Tyrone. It's going to be Quinyon week
No
one.
way.
I'm on
Ringo, baby.
I'm on Team Tyrone, but where I defect from Team Tyrone is he's a failure as a pick if he's not on the field.
He was saying not that Quinyon was a failure. Not that Quinyon was a failure. I don't want to put words in Tyrone's mouth. Basically, what he was saying was that would be the second year in a row that Howie Roseman used a first-round draft pick that didn't contribute to a bad defense, is essentially what he was saying.
Because he's not out there in week one? What if he's out there and even, Nolan Smith is obviously he's talking about because people forget Jalen Carter was pretty impactful. He was a first-round pick.
Yeah.
So, Nolan.
So do you think Quinyon's week one starting corner?
Yeah. Yeah. Here's my plot. And I love Keely Ringo, as you know, Bill. But my whole point is, look, Quinyon's got the highest ceiling of them all. That's where the Eagles want to go. He's a good player. He had a good spring. I don't think he's going to have a bad summer. And I look back to what Kansas City did a couple years ago when they played all the young defensive backs, and they kind of struggled.
Yeah.
But by the second half of the season, those guys were kicking in and getting better. I think that's what you do. I think you get the startup cost over with, and maybe you got a big-time player by the second half of the season. That's what I think.
When Howie Roseman spoke, he did say, maybe we play the young guys a little bit more. I remember what he said. He said the coaches will look at the depth chart and maybe not feel comfortable because the guy hasn't done it yet, but we drafted them for a reason. So,
but as Diana Rossini said on her podcast this week, and she is 100% correct, Vic is going to do what Vic wants to do.
Yeah.
So if he wants to play Keely Ringo is going to be out there. And if he wants to play Isaiah Rodgers, he's going to be out there.
I'm sorry.
Now, let me say this.
Look, I think Vic's going to do what he wants to do, but to a certain extent. This is the Philadelphia Eagles, John McMullen. Vic Fangio isn't coming in here as a first-time coordinator in Philly.
Yes, he is.
Telling Howie Roseman who he wants on the field. And
here's the only thing I have to say with that. And I'm going to get accused of being Dave Spadaro again. Here's what bothers me, and I get the same narrative on the radio about Roseman and Laurie. At the end of the day, these guys want to win football games. They do want to win football games. They do want to win championships. So if Howie Roseman is being told by his defensive coordinator that Isaiah Rodgers or Keely Ringo gives us the best chance to win, I don't think he's going to say, I don't care, play Quinyon Mitchell because I'd rather lose football games and be right. I think they're going to do what's best for the football.
That's not what I'm saying, though. But it's a delicate balance. And for those who think Howie is all powerful and he tells everybody what to do, why didn't Nolan Smith play last year? Because Nick wanted to win freaking football games. That's why he didn't play last year.
He wasn't ready. Yeah.
And if Bick wants to play, and by the way, everybody genuflects. I think they genuflect when they cross Vic Fangio in that building. They're not going to dispute his defensive football acumen. So, you got a guy who's playing Quinyon Mitchell at dime linebacker in the spring. If Sean Desai did that, they'd run him out on a rail. I point it out all the time. It's Vic. All right. Hey, Vic said he can play dime linebacker. Let's put him at dime linebacker.
Yeah.
He's going to play who he wants to play. Now, if Howie really wants to avert that, he can do the Billy Bean Moneyball thing, and he could just cut somebody or trade somebody and force them to play somebody.
Is John McMullen, hot take, Keely Ringo's getting cut?
No.
I know.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Well, John, but then why? So when you say you think it's going to be Quinyon Mitchell, you think it's because he's going to be the best player on the field, and that's who?
I think it's going to be very close. Quinyon's very good. He had a very good spring. We're all talking about Rodgers and Ringo, and they had the better springs. But Mitchell was very good as well. And I think as it goes on, it will be very close. And if it's close, you might as well play the guy with the upside, the highest ceiling. And
yeah, but wouldn't that be a Howie directive?
No, that's common sense directive. Vic knows he's got. Vic knows. Vic's not going to go in there and say, "Oh, Quinyon Mitchell stinks." I mean, he's a good player.
That, but if you have a guy that's slightly better and you're Vic,
here's my concern, and I know you got to go, Bill. Here's my concern with Vic. As long as Bradbury's here, then you're really throwing. I think Howie made a mistake there, because Vic is going to go in and say, "I got James Bradbury, and all these young quarterbacks don't know what the bleep they're doing. Can I play James Bradbury?" That's my concern. That's a bigger.
I think Bradbury's gone, but that's a conversation.
I agree, but Howie should have gotten rid of him by now. Is my point.
Well, the nice thing is, the next time that we all speak, we'll have a week of practice under our belt to be able to talk about. And we'll have a better understanding of what's going on instead of all this just projections, because everything's projections right now. We have no idea.
And I think we'll get a lot more answers than we're even thinking in the first week. We're going to find out some things real quick. So I'm excited to see. Bill, thanks for joining the show today, man. Great as always. We appreciate it. Where are you at on 97.5 this week? Give a little plug for where you're going to be, where people can listen to
2 to 7 all week. So
2 to 7 all week. Good week.
You're doing extra work with Andrew DeCecco. Look at you.
Yeah, 97.5 and NBC Sports Philly. I'm on TV all week too.
All right.
Nice. I'll have you tuned up here in my studio. I'll be listening to you, Bill, watching you. We appreciate it, man, you joining the show today. We'll talk to you next week. All right, Bill.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Talk soon.
Thanks,
Bill Colarulo joining us on Birds 365. Good stuff from Bill Colarulo. Johnny Mac, I disagree with you about. Look, Howie came out after the season and said, we maybe should have played Nolan Smith more. This is where I agree with you, where I think Quinyon's going to take the field. Because if Howie says that last year, in hindsight about the season, I don't think he's going to let us get through another season. If he wants a draft pick to play, for whatever reason, it's going to happen. I don't think Vic Fangio is going to overrule.
If Quinyon Mitchell shows up in the summer, and he plays like Nolan Smith played last summer, he's not going to play.
We'll see.
But now, I don't believe that's going to happen. I mean, part of my projection is he's going to be good. Not that he's going to be terrible, and they're going to play him because he's a first-round pick. If he shows up in the summer and he fails, he's not going to play. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying he's going to play well. I'm saying if it's even close, if maybe Kaylee plays a little bit better or if Isaiah plays a little bit better, that's a possibility. In that instance, he's still going to play. if he shows up and he plays like Nolan Smith played last year in camp, he's not going to play.
Well, this is
that's not what I'm saying.
No, I hear you. I see what you're saying. You're still factoring in that he's going to be a competent, good player. But this is where I'm off Isaiah Rodgers, because even if he's great, or even if he looks great in camp, Howie's like, there's no long term here for in Philadelphia. So get my young guys out there. Get the guys I spent a first round pick on. Get Keely Ringo out there. Get Cooper DeJean out there. That's why I don't see the playing time for Isaiah Rodgers. And you could make the argument Vic wants to win right now. If Isaiah Rodgers is better than them, he would play him. But we're going to see how it looks. I just think Howie's still going to have some level of say in who's out there on the defense. I really do. I don't think Vic's just going to be able to say, I'm doing this for this reason, and that's it. End of story.
Yeah, if Isaiah Rodgers comes in and plays like the best corner on the team, he's going to play because they have Quinyon for 5 years and they have Cooper for 4 years, and they can afford to wait. And they do want to win a Super Bowl. So if he goes in and shows everybody he is Deion Sanders, he's going to play. Now, will they have to address it going forward? Of course. And you want to keep a player like that, but I would hesitate. He's a good player. He's not a great player. Even Christian Parker, the new secondary coach, said, let's see when the pads come on, because one of the big issues in Indianapolis was he wasn't terrific in run support. It's not the most physical guy. So you have to see that. Bottom line is Quinyon Mitchell has a much bigger upside. Doesn't mean he's going to turn into a star player. We talk about Devin White all the time. He was the fifth pick in the draft. There's no guarantee, but he's got the traits to have a much bigger upside. Same thing with Keely Ringo. But Vic's going to play who he wants to play on game days. Now, he has no control over the 53-man roster. So, again, you better get Bradbury the hell out of here.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out, Johnny Mac. Let's get to our second commercial break here. Great stuff from Bill Colarulo. We have Scott Grayson from Fox 29 coming up in about 15 or 14 minutes here on Birds 365. Appreciate all of our viewership today on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. Make sure you guys drop a like on the show, as it's the best thing you can do to help support Birds 365 and help us grow. We appreciate that very much. So stay tuned. Birds 365. We'll be right back.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia Dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365. 0 days till training camp, everybody. Training camp is here. The Philadelphia Eagles report to camp today. Johnny Mack will be down there tomorrow and Thursday, walk through Friday, and they're back on the practice field on Saturday. And then we will update you on next week's schedule as well. Reminder to everybody, a programming note to all of our viewers today. We will not be on tomorrow morning from 8 to 10 a.m. We will be doing a 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. show coming out of the National Football Show after Dan Cilio. John has to get down there early. A lot of stuff to do at the NovaCare Complex. So that'll be tomorrow and Thursday. We'll have a 6 to 8 p.m., a special nighttime edition of Birds 365, something we have never done on Birds 365. So we will do that. We want to make sure we get you guys 2 hours of content every day, and it'll be good because John will be fresh out of NovaCare. So
I don't know if fresh is the right word, but I'll be out.
Well, you'll at least have seen the. It'll be a long day for you, John.
It's better because you see what happened versus projecting what happened. Yeah, should be fine. And anybody can look at it. Then you have the on-demand aspect. So, if you miss it, go to the YouTube page. It'll be there for you whenever you want to consume.
Yep, and I'll be running some premieres and stuff in the morning for you guys as well. And we'll do a little bit of a live show tomorrow, whether John is there or not, on Wednesday and Thursday in the morning. So, because I know a lot of our loyal viewers are in here at 8 a.m. every day, and I want to make sure we give you guys something as well. Johnny Mack, let's hit James Carver. Dropped us a super chat in hour number 1. We never got to it. I want to bring it up now. James, thank you, brother. $19.99. That's a big super chat, and we appreciate that very much. Any super chats, guys, go to the front. We read all of our super chats on JAKIB Sports. And they go a long way in helping support our network. So we appreciate that very much. James Carver says, possibility of Tyler Hall being a safety and slot backup with roster cuts because of his past record at slot, and parallels between slot and safety with run fit responsibilities and willingness and ability to fill the A gap and hit all slots and hit like all slots must. What do you think of Tyler Hall and his potential to be a safety or slot backup, Johnny Mack?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those underreported on players that has a chance to make the roster. It's difficult from a numbers perspective because the Eagles are so deep at cornerback, which is a weird thing to say because typically it hasn't been the case, but they've, essentially brought in, if you think about Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean at the top of the draft, but also Isaiah Rodgers, who was, here on the roster, but suspended. So he's new. And you bring in that kind of talent. Plus Avonte Maddox is back from his injury. So in the spring, Avonte was the starting slot, and Cooper DeJean would mix in with the second team. Tyler Hall got some reps with the second team. And that versatility, it's a mirrored position, as Jonathan Gannon used to say, slot and safety in this particular defense. So that's where the versatility helps. Avonte has it as well. And a lot of people, including myself, expect the Eagles to go light at safety on paper. Because they're going to have corners versatile enough to play the position. And we'll see how it shakes out. You're probably, if you look at it today, it's going to be difficult for him to make the roster. You remember you can get him on the practice squad. Veterans can be on the practice squad now, so that's not an issue. If you, you have to risk putting, and I have to look at Tyler's vested. He might be vested, which you don't have to worry about him going through waivers. He is vested, so you don't have to worry. But so you could do the wink deal where you say, look, stay in the hotel. We're bringing you back. We're going to put you on the practice squad. But at the same time, he's also got a mall. Maybe there's a team around the NFL that needs help, and he's got a better opportunity to play. So that's always risky. Where then injuries come into it. He's an injury or two away from being projected to be on the 53. But, if you want to do the 100%er club, which I'm going to do later today on SI, people can look out for that. And who's going to make this team 100% at corner? You're talking about Slay. You're talking about Mitchell. You're talking about DeJean. You're talking about Rodgers. I wouldn't even put, I said this yesterday, I wouldn't even put, and Ringo would be the fifth. I wouldn't even put Avonte Maddox as 100%. I put him in
I agree.
90s if he's healthy. But even him. So it's difficult to make that 100%er club. And then you start talking about, do you want Josh Jobe for special teams? He's a tremendous special teams player. Perry Nickerson is here, who's got a history of veteran nickel corner as well, who's got a history of with Vic Fangio from Miami last year. Eli Ricks. Everyone loves Eli Ricks. Can't keep them all.
It's just a tough numbers game in Philly right now. That's where I question on Tyler Hall. Like, and the other thing I think that's happening for sure is I don't know as much about the other NFL teams, admittedly, as I do about the Philadelphia Eagles, but I do think other teams are watching the Eagles and what they do at the cornerback room, because I think they know they have a lot of players. They got a lot of young guys, and they can't keep them all. So maybe they'll be waiting to poach somebody, when we make those first roster cuts. We'll see how it all plays out. Johnny Mac, let's move into, here's a good question. And I do want you to answer this for our buddy Andrew Jackson in the chat. Andrew, thanks for being here, brother. So all the players report today. Does anything else happen day one? Johnny Mac from the inside, what does happen on day one? I know we said they report today, but we can't talk about anything. What's going on at day one? Is it a report day, physicals? What else goes on down there?
Yeah, you got physicals, you got meetings, you got, they're going to have conditioning tests to make sure everybody's in shape. Sometimes you'll see guys starting on the PUP list because they don't pass their conditioning test. Sidney Brown will start on the PUP list for his, rehabbing ACL, but sometimes you'll see a guy be on the PUP list for 2 days. And that's because it happened to Jalen Reagor back in the day when one of his best friends was died, I believe, in a car accident. And he was, depressed and a little bit out of shape. And he was on there for a few days and then he was back. So, a lot of logistics, that kind of thing, ramping guys up. Meeting, as I said, Nick will have a team meeting. Certainly, guys will start breaking off. And think of it as an onboarding process, on your new job.
Right.
Now, a lot of the veterans have been through this a bunch of times. And, Kelsey would always joke that if he hears Jeff Stoutland install inside zone another time, he was going to lose his mind. But it's very important for the younger players, obviously. And, yeah, it all starts today. And, onboarding, we'll call it.
Yeah, good. I'm excited, John. I got to be honest. I mean, we've been talking about it all off season, and you run through every what if. You come up with as many topics as you can, especially my first off season hosting Birds 365. Now it's here, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out. I'm excited for you to get down there and give us some takeaways on what you see from the camp. There's a lot of questions to be answered. And we'll do that. So we have Scott Grayson from Fox 29 coming up next. I want to thank everybody again for being here in the chat. Good crowd today, John. Good commentary, good crowd. A lot of good comments, as always. Our fans are great, and we try and keep them as well informed as we can. So I got some good questions to talk to Scott Grayson about. He'll join the show in about 2 minutes, depending on if he's here. He's not in the green room yet, but we will take our next time out. Scott Grayson coming up next on Birds 365. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Drop a like and stay tuned on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365. Camp reporting day for the Philadelphia Eagles. Scott Grayson. We are here, man. The 2024 season is upon us. Welcome to the show, Scott. Thanks for being here.
Hey, good to be here, guys. Thank you.
Good to see you, Scott. First of all, the important news: did your son win the big tournament?
They had a good showing. Went 4-1 and just missed the playoffs due to some tiebreakers. But they had a good. Yeah, they did well. They played well.
There should be no tiebreakers in this.
No, right?
No crying, no tiebreakers.
Yeah.
But glad to hear it. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, we're here, as Zander said. Where's Scott Grayson? I asked. Bill Colarulo was on the show in the first hour with us. I'm going to ask you. It's difficult, but I want you to try to do this, Scott. Put the coaching aside. I don't want to talk about that yet. And if you go back to free agency, when you entered free agency with this team, do you think the Eagles are better from a player perspective? Or is that a little bit overrated when you lose the Kelceys and Reddicks and Fletcher Coxes of the world?
You know, I think it's a great question. And so you're saying free agency and draft, yes?
Yeah, everything.
So I think, you know, I want to say they are. You know, we all, I think, get really attached to these guys, especially the Kelceys and those and the Fletcher Coxes. But, you know, Father Time is always victorious. He will always win. And I think in this league, you have to continue to get younger if you want to succeed. And at some point, you have to be willing to part with guys. Now, thankfully, in some cases, you know, and I would rather they had Kelce for one more year. But, some of these guys, they decide to move on and that it's time to retire on their own. I just think you look at the additions that they had. The Saquon Barkley is definitely an upgrade in my mind. I know there's a lot of people who are nervous about Cam Jurgens. I'm putting faith in Jeff Stoutland here. I know you said not to consider the coaching, but just in terms of the player should be ready. He's had time to get ready for this role that he was drafted really for. And so I just look at this team and I just expect them to be better. And I mean, you go a step further and you say, okay, well, look at what they got rid of. Look at the players that they chose not to bring back. And it makes you wonder about the internal dynamics of that locker room last season that led to that collapse and how the front office chose to try to rectify some of that. And I just think that these guys are ready for a clean slate. They're ready for a new book to write in and a new chapter, if you will, to start writing this book that will be the 2024-25 season. And I think, I'm excited to see what this group can do together.
Scott, I want to take you down a path we were just talking about. It's one of the things that's been talked about probably the most this offseason. It's a whole new look at cornerback. You got a lot of young guys in the room, a lot of potential in that room. We're 45 days away, Scott, from that opening game. Who's going to be the starting cornerback opposite Darius Slay in week 1?
I'll tell you what, man, that is the $1 million question, right,
Yeah,
Zander? I think you look at this, and that is going to be by far, I think, the best competition throughout camp because it's such a deep position that they have right now. There's not enough room on the roster to keep them all. So there is going to be a lot of good position battles taking place there for the different spots that come in these packages at defensive back. Sure, who's going to start opposite Darius Slay? I'll tell you what, I'm not sold on it being Bradbury. I just haven't been since they got some of these younger guys in. I think it'd be great to put a young guy opposite a veteran like Darius Slay. Let one of these guys like a Cooper DeJean or Quinion Mitchell maybe take one of those spots. But they're so deep there, and I think it's one of the luxuries they have to be able to say, all right, guys, here it is. Go fight it out for some playing time and see where the chips fall. I think it's going to be a fascinating battle to watch. And unfortunately, we won't see a lot of it play out in preseason games just the way it is. But I think some of those guys are going to have to play in preseason games. And I think it's a great opportunity to get the feet wet for some of the younger players. But I think that's going to be something fascinating to watch. And who takes the side opposite of Darius Slay in Brazil? Man, I think that's a great question to ask, and I have no idea who's going to win that battle.
Hey, it's interesting you bring up Bradbury. I'm stunned that he's here. Here we are. How he keeps kicking this can down the road. I mean, at some point he's going to hit the wall at the end of the block, but I mean, I don't see how it helps because you have all these young corners and you want to evaluate Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and Isaiah Rodgers. And James Bradbury's not going to be the starting cornerback. In fact, the Eagles wanted to move him to safety in minicamp, and he hurt his oblique early, we think. and they went about it that way. And here we are. And I'm thinking to myself, Scott, boy, Howard really wants this conditional 6th-round pick really, really bad. Is it worth it? Because if he's here, there's two concerns. One, Vic Fangio might go, hey, this guy knows how to play, whereas these young guys are running around like young guys, and this guy knows how to play. And two, you're taking reps away from those young. Every rep he's out there, whether it's at safety or corner, even at safety, you're taking away from Mekhi Gardner, Tristan McCullum, young players. Why? What, 6th-round, conditional 6th-round pick? Come on.
Right. And I'll go a step further for you, John. First of all, I agree with you on reps being one of the biggest things that I think is so key for these younger guys that he will take away. But he's a human being. He has feelings. He has, a life.
Too.
And
he's a good guy too. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. But you got to wonder, as your feelings get tarnished, you feel like you're kind of being used, which is what, Howie would be doing here, using him. What does that do to the locker room? What does that do to the DB room? What does that do to some of the intangibles taking place behind the scenes that you're trying to fix from last year? You're almost creating an opportunity for this to start, at least in that room, degrading a little bit in terms of a guy who could have a bad attitude. he's a good guy. He does, and one of the things I appreciate was he always stood in front of his locker and he would answer questions, even though they were going to be uncomfortable ones. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm shocked he's here, and I don't like the idea of him taking any reps away from somebody when he's not going to be lining up on Sunday out there for any meaningful snaps. I would be shocked if he did. So, yeah, what they're doing with that one is kind of head scratching. But anytime Howie thinks he can have a pawn in the game of chess that they play out there,
that's true.
He will hold it and hold it and hold it.
To me, Sam Hinkie in this, and the fact that he's trying to win it at all costs, and I'm like, sometimes you just lay up, tin cup it, don't go for the hole.
Right.
Say, all right, what is a conditional 6th-round pick going to do for me versus getting these players ready? And I'm glad you brought up the human aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's big.
I think it not only everything you brought up, Scott, but also it signals to other players it's a bad signal to other players.
You don't want that reputation. And no organization wants that. And, and look, more and more these things are becoming more and more. I mean, look at what happened with the Giants on Hard Knocks and the call with Saquon and how that's evolved now into how his feeling.
God. Could you imagine if Eagles fans, Scott, got to listen to honest and frank discussions about, say, Hassan Reddick or even Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the uproar?
Yeah.
That's why the Eagles want no part of that shit.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's a smart move. I mean, you do not need this stuff getting out. I think we're reaching the point where you got to wonder what's in it for these organizations to expose themselves like this. And you talk about this, we have no idea what kind of conversations are happening between Bradbury and Howie and Nick and Vic and what's all going on behind the scenes over there. And boy, we certainly have no idea what really went down behind the scenes over there last year. But could you imagine if we had a clear window into everything that was happening behind the scenes last season and even this offseason? It's crazy.
I mean, it's crazy the way poor Joe Shane has been just eviscerated. And look, 99% of this league thinks he made the right decision. Now, the Eagles are in a different frame. They're ready-made. They're not building on the foundation of Saquon Barkley. So what's good for one team might not be good for another. And boy, that gets lost in the context. Like, I think if you ask Howie Roseman, honest, give him the true serum, Scott, and said, should the Giants send Saquon? He'd say, freak, hell no. Hell no. They have nothing. They got to build everything up.
Right.
It makes no sense for them, but that doesn't mean it makes no sense for the Eagles.
No, but it's I go to the conversation, which has been so transparent now, right? That the Giants had with him. There's a lot they said in that conversation that conversation could have been handled a lot better, to be more honest, truthfully, with saying, hey, circle back to us when you get a number. I mean,
well, that is being honest.
Well,
in an NFL way. Circle back, which means, all right, see you later.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. But I just and with Bradbury, you got to believe there's stuff going on, and his agent is certainly going to try to orchestrate stuff. And you mentioned the phantom injury that happened in minicamp. What are we going to see this week? It's probably going to be something similar. He doesn't want to go out there and truly get hurt when he knows it's not here. He wants an opportunity somewhere else.
Yeah, it's true. The human element can't be dismissed, and I think many times it is dismissed because these guys are, as you mentioned, they're pawns on the chessboard in a way, and sometimes they get reduced to that at the professional level.
It's an ugly part of the industry, but it's a real part of it.
Yes, it is.
And they know it. They say it. It's a business. They understand it, but they still have families and lives. And
exactly. Exactly. That's just because they understand it doesn't mean they're not human beings.
Sure.
Yeah.
Scott, let me ask you about the new coordinators. I mean, we're coming into the season. That's arguably the biggest difference in last year. I mean, there's some roster turnover. You lose some players, but the biggest thing here is you got two new coordinators. They went a whole different route. They went experience coming into the year. How long will it take? How long will the growing pains be coming into the year? You see a lot of times it takes offenses time, to get going with a new coordinator. There's not a lot of off-season work anymore. It's not the old NFL. How long will the growing pains be, or how bad will they be with the new coordinators coming into the year this year?
Yeah, I think when you've got veteran guys like this, they've been through this before and they understand that aspect of it. So I expect that they have a plan to kind of curb that. But you are absolutely right. There are not the reps out there that they used to have with these guys, and the opportunities to really get through some of that learning curve that needs to take place on both sides of the ball when you have new coordinators like this. Now, the joint practices certainly will help when they get to that point. That's when you get some actual quote live bullets kind of flying at you and an opportunity to work with your guys on some of that stuff. But they will not take it. I mean, we know they will not be out there. This first team offense, I don't expect to be out there during the preseason. And so you end up having the first 2-3 weeks of the regular season is the new preseason. We all have heard that saying before.
Yeah.
I think that's where you're really going to see the growing pains come out. Now, at the same token, look, the Packers are looking at the Eagles and going, we don't really know what they're going to do, and they've got to go into this blind figuring it out. So, the more the Eagles can be on, the same page on both sides of the ball between the coordinators and their players and the guys actually running the plays that need to be run and being where they're supposed to be and knowing where other guys are going to be while they're on the field without having to turn their head and look, communication, all that stuff. The more the Eagles are on their P's and Q's with that at the beginning of the season, I think the more likely they are to start the season undefeated through the first few weeks because the opponents just don't know what's coming yet. Now, to answer your question, I'm very excited to see what Kellen Moore does with this. Man, you got the keys to a really, really nice looking vehicle here.
Yeah, you just got a Ferrari handed to you. Yeah.
Yeah. You rev that engine a little bit. And when you go to shift that thing in gear, it's going to purr real nice. I mean, that's what he's thinking, And I got to believe that he has been chomping at the bit to get to this week and just really start pushing forward to get going with these guys and move these pieces into place. Now, we do know there's questions on that offensive line. And health is always an issue with every team and every player out there. But if these guys can stay healthy, they've got the weapons to be able to do a lot of things. And I look at, at Vic Fangio then to flip it on its side and say, listen, Vic, I don't need you to pitch shutouts here. In my opinion, I don't even think he needs to keep teams to less than 17 points. This offense should score enough that I just need you to keep the opponent to 20 or less, and this team should have a chance to win every game. But I'm very excited to see what these coordinators do. Vic Fangio obviously has a much harder job than Kellen Moore to get a lot of these moving pieces into place and ready to go. Just because he's got a lot, he's got a lot less experienced guys out there who need to get going. And look, guys, I'm not sold on linebackers still. I just
well, you shouldn't be.
You shouldn't be.
Well, that's where I was going, and you sort of went there on your own, Scott. It's like, all right, if Kellen Moore's got the Lambo,
right,
and it's going up 140, and NFL players, please stop doing that. But occasionally you need service. And maybe you got to get a rental car for the day. And Vic's got the Ford Focus. It's like, all right, brand new. I'm not killing Ford Focuses, but there's some things, but it's
Doesn't
not a
run
Lambo.
like a Lambo, Johnny Mac. That's for sure. Yeah.
So I mean, at some point, it's like I think the plan was, Scott. All right, offense. Let's build. I don't want to see dream team because of the connotations in Philadelphia, but say all-star team, and then it's Vic will figure it out on defense. I don't like that. It's still about talent, and I have high hopes for Bryce Huff. I think he's going to be a good player. I think Quinyon Mitchell, to Zander's question, is he's going to be the day one starter in Brazil. I think he's going to be a good player. I think Reed Blankenship is underrated. CJ's back. Linebackers, I'm with you. I don't know what to think. I think the depth chart is exactly the same. I think if you play Devin White or Ben Van Sumeren, you're going to get the same level of play. The whole depth chart is like that. Is it too much on Vic Fangio?
I think it will be from the the fans' perspective. It's all going to look at, and if it doesn't start out pretty, everybody's going to want to blame Vic. And I don't think that's fair. I think in terms of what we were talking about, verbiage and plays, and you've got a lot of young players on that side of the ball, which is not a bad thing. But, you need to get all those guys on the same page, and some of them need to be brought up to speed. Now, you're expecting big things, and he is, and the Eagles are, from Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. And I think that's fair. They need to step up. What will Nolan Smith give them this year? That's a big question. I do like the addition of Bryce Huff, but that's all up front. And then it's what are you going to fill in behind that? And we have legitimate concerns at linebacker, and what will that do against stopping the run? I just think you play the dominoes down from there. But to your point, I think the pressure is on Vic because he will be the first one to be blamed if it's not working. And I don't think that's fair. I think that, you have to allow, and this scheme is going to take some time to build in on that side of the ball. It's a lot easier to go run a play when you know where you're going. As a defender, you've got to stop the guy who you don't know where they're going. And communication is such a big thing on defense. We saw that last year, the lack of it and the lack of understanding of knowing where
especially in this defense, Scott,
because
it's so complicated.
Yeah. And if they can get all that, it could end up being really good. I just think there's going to be some speed bumps, particularly early in the season on that side of the ball. And I think fans need to be guarded for that. You need to understand that there's going to be some issues on that side of the ball early in the season that hopefully will get corrected, because there's no better teacher than, live bullets, real life experience and film that you're going to get from those early games that I think these guys can learn from. But I think it's unfair if it all comes down on Vic, but certainly as a guy, driving the Ford Focus, he's got to try to keep it on the road, and that does fall on him.
Well, I want to add something to this conversation, because we just talked about it with the players. I want to add the human element, right? Last year, the Eagles offense were the 8th ranked offense in the NFL, and Brian Johnson is viewed as the biggest failure in the last 5 years of the Eagles. Meanwhile, the defense was the 31st ranked pass defense in the NFL. So, on the same breath, Kellen Moore might be taking over a Ferrari, but the previous guy just ran a 10-second quarter mile. He's got to beat that. That's a tough task to do. It's kind of the pressure is high. The expectations are high. How much will that weigh on Kellen Moore, where, it's not like they were the crappiest offense in the league and anything is better. He's kind of got to be a really good offense. He's got to drive that thing properly. How much will that pressure weigh on him?
I think it won't unless they don't come out well in the first, say, 2 weeks. Then I think everybody looks at him and says, whoa, thought you were good. Thought you knew what you were doing. You got all these guys here and you're not making this thing work.
Yeah, this town's brutal.
and maybe there'll be some truth to that. We don't know until it plays out. That being said, when you look at what happened with the Eagles, and I think all the numbers last year are somewhat skewed because, sure, as much and as high as you say the offense was ranked, you're right, they were. How much was that skewed by that 10-1 start and the things they were doing? A.J. Brown putting up 125 yards receiving in 6 straight games earlier in the year. It was flat. It was stale. It was predictable. People said that. Everybody, other players were saying it became – they knew it was coming on that offense. So even though it was 8th in the league, it wasn't playing like an 8th ranked offense come playoff time against Tampa. It just was – it was flat. It was still – it was predictable.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's true.
And so you look at what Kellen Moore's job here is, don't let it get that way. Keep adding new wrinkles. Do things, use motion like we've talked about, put these guys in places where they have mismatches and the ability to go out and succeed. Put Dallas Goedert on a corner and let him just go up and be stronger and more physical and make a play. That's I think where that will be exposed if it's not happening, and that's where the criticism will come down on Kellen Moore for sure. But if this offense doesn't start well, I think people will look to – it'll be either him or Jalen or both, as they're usually the guys who end up taking the criticism. Look, one thing that you can't point at is you won't be able to point at Nick anymore about the offense. They've made it clear. He's hands off. So if there's issues –
which is weird. I haven't even gotten into that, but it's weird. I don't like this setup, Scott. I don't see how anybody can look at this setup. My buddy Marcus Hayes raved about it this week. I don't see how you can look at this setup and say, "Hey, this is a good idea." You got a head coach who, Marcus claims is a great administrator in Jeffrey Lurie's eyes, and nobody's been around Jeffrey Lurie more than Marcus over the years. I can believe that Jeffrey believes that. But then you have Diana Rossini saying, "Oh, Howie hired the coordinators. He's not even administrating." Then we're back to, well, what the hell does he do? And by the way, I don't believe that. He did hire the coordinators. But everybody wanted to hire Vic. It's like Vic's white noise. Like everybody wanted Vic. So it really comes down to Kellen Moore, Scott. And while I do believe Nick ultimately made the decision of who to hire, whether it was going to be Kellen Moore or Cliff Kingsbury or somebody else, he didn't want to hire him. He knew, well, I want to keep my job. This is a pretty good gig.
Right.
And if I want to keep my gig, I got to move away. I got to do something. I don't like the setup, Scott.
Well,
can you frame it in a good way?
Well, yeah. Well, we talked about the human element of things, right? Let's put ourselves in, and let's have a little exercise here and put ourselves in Nick Sirianni's shoes. You were told what you brought here, what you were doing is not working, and we need to do something different. And it includes you not being part of it. But we want to keep you here.
It's so weird.
By the way, your results were 3 straight playoff appearances and 42 and 7
and the best record in Eagles history.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right, which makes it all so complicated. I agree with you. There's no better word to describe it than weird. It is weird, but you add the human element side of it, and it's like, where is Nick right now? Mentally, emotionally. Now he's had time to kind of embrace this, and I believe somebody like Nick has put his mind and his head all around this and said, you know what, I'm now going to be the best head coach only that I can be, and I think he will embrace that, and he will find a way to try to do that. Obviously, the Eagles like something that he's doing behind the scenes. I think they like the way he's been a motivator. Will he carry himself differently on the sidelines? That's something I'm looking for this year. Will he quote grow up a little bit and not be, the demonstrative child on the sidelines that is over and talking for the camera and yelling at fans out the games? Yeah. Well, or will he still be that guy? I think some of that remains to be seen. But and he was told, we want you to do this, but we don't want you to do that anymore. I don't care who you are. That affects you.
Yeah.
And I'll be curious to see how he handles that and himself and handles his weekly responsibilities.
And by the way, Scott, he loved doing it. That was his favorite part of the job, was putting together the offensive game plan.
And he's still a young guy. I mean, to be told that we don't want you to do that, but we want you to do this.
And that's a good frame. And it's bad. And overall, because the way you described it, Scott, which I think you did very well, we want you, we no longer want you to do this, but do that. That nobody's taken that well. They might put on a good face in public. Nobody. Human nature.
Over time, you can get to hearing the message, right? But your first thought is, wait, you're not hearing, I want you to do this. What you're hearing is, wait, you brought me here to do this, and now you don't want me to do that. What are we doing? And I think that's not to be underrated here as to how Nick goes through camp as the administrator or the CEO of the team, as they say. And how he goes through the first few weeks. I think it's going to be. I think I'm somewhat fascinated to watch that side of things.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest story of the year. I really do. How Nick integrates with Kellen and Kellen integrates with Jalen Hurts, and
how do they work on the sidelines together? How do they communicate what we see? Right.
and to Zander's point about the offense. Situationally, you talk about getting better. They have to get better. Well, they were number one in fourth down offense. Large part of that is the tush push. You no longer have Jason Kelsey. We'll see how that shakes out. They were number 3 in third down offense in the entire NFL. They were better in third down offense in 2023 than they were in 2022. Those are the kind of standards you not only have to reach, you have to surpass. With a lot of expectations. And if I'm Nick Sirianni, see what I think Nick did, Scott, is he had the political savvy that Doug Peterson did not, and realized, look, I got one shot, I got one mulligan. If we lose, I'm out anyway. But if we win, if we have another special season, Kellen Moore's probably out because he's going to get hired somewhere else, and then Nick can step back into the vacuum. I think that's his strategy.
Well, and I think you're right. I think he is more savvy than Doug was in this moment, because if it also doesn't work and he's out, to what Zander said, his resume.
Yeah, he's going. Well, yeah, he's going to get another.
It's a strong resume, and it shows he was willing to play nice in the sandbox. Which I think owners like. So, I think he set himself up for what amounts to a win-win, and certainly the path he would prefer to take is this team goes and wins a Lombardi trophy. And you're right, Kellen Moore is revered for his offense, and he goes and I think what the Eagles are hoping is, hey, did you learn something from while he was here that you can apply?
And then you simply say, yes, I did, and you step back into that vacuum,
right?
Which I think you can sell pretty easily, to be honest, because nobody's firing the Super Bowl winning coach.
No,
coming off the Super Bowl,
right?
So I think it's an easy path. Now, very difficult to go to the Super Bowl, never mind win it. So we'll see how that shakes out. But it's good to get Scott Grayson back. Good to see you, buddy, at S Grayson Fox 29 on X, Twitter, whatever you like to call it. Exciting season. Give us your prediction. Yeah, how many wins we're talking about?
Maybe you can call me a little too optimistic, but I'm going 13.
13.
Wow, that's what I had, Scott. I'm with you, Scott. That's how I had.
There we go.
Now, Jody used to have this exercise. I'm going to give it to you. If you had to go one up or one down, which way are you going?
Okay,
original.
It is a good question. I would probably go one down because I feel like I took the 12 mark and I was like, yeah, I think they got another one in there. But let's face it, at 12-5, they win this division too. I just think,
USA Today's got them winning the division at 10-7. 10-7.
Yeah, I like 13-4. I think things work in their advantage again. The unknown. What are they going to run? How are they going to run it early in the season? And then I just don't think they slip into predictability as much as they did last year. And I like the horses on this offense. Now, of course, the great equalizer. Injuries always could change things, but
well, that's built in any team. I mean,
it is a good take though, Scott, on that. As much as we're waiting to see how fast it clicks, other teams have no idea what to expect. The Packers have no idea what to expect really coming into game one. Is it the same Jalen Hurts? Is it a different? What's the offense look like? So that's a good perspective too.
Yeah, and how much are we going to see Jalen run, or are we not going to at all? I'll be curious to watch that evolve too.
I hope he's going to run some. Oof.
He's got to run some. It's just part of his tool set.
Yeah. I don't want to see that change.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Brock Purdy. I will say that.
Yeah.
No, we don't want to see that. Well, Scott, the season is officially here. The waiting is done. They report to camp today. We appreciate you checking in on Birds 365 today. Make sure you guys follow Scott on Twitter at sgraysonfox29 and follow all his work on Fox 29. Scott, we appreciate you being here today, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, you got it, Zander. John, good talking to you guys too.
Thanks, Scott.
Grayson joining us on Birds 365. Great stuff from Scott Grayson. Camp is here, everybody. I am beyond excited. A lot of anticipation, a lot of discussion, a lot of talk all off season long. Now we will get some real tangible answers to the things we've been talking about. Been a good show today with Johnny Mack. We had Bill Colarulo in hour 1, Scott Grayson, as you just listened to, in hour number 2, and some good stuff. So I just want to remind everybody real quick as well. Programming note, tomorrow morning, no Birds 365 from 8 to 10 a.m. We will have some other form of content right now. Tomorrow, I think it's just going to be me and you chopping it up for a little bit at 8 a.m. But we will have Birds 365 tomorrow, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., a nighttime edition tomorrow and Thursday, because John has to get down to NovaCare. A lot of stuff going on tomorrow. So make sure you guys are tuned in tomorrow night. I'll be looking forward to talking to you guys 6 to 8 p.m. tomorrow. So we'll do a late edition of Birds 365. So remember that when you check in the morning, and we are not here in the morning, 6 to 8 p.m. tomorrow. Expect to see all you guys there. We appreciate your support as always. Let's take one more commercial break, and we'll come back and wrap up this Camp Reporting Day edition of Birds 365. Stay tuned, everybody.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, closing out this Tuesday edition. It's a big Tuesday because the Eagles have officially reported for training camp. We are 0 days away, everybody, from training camp. The Eagles are reporting down there today, as Johnny Mack mentioned, physicals and onboarding, and think of it like your first day at a new job, as Johnny Mack mentioned. So they're down there today, and then tomorrow and Thursday, John McMullen will be down there at NovaCare Complex for their first couple open practices of training camp. So a lot of stuff to talk about all week on Birds 365. As I mentioned, tomorrow and Thursday will be a 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time. I know somebody asked what time zone I was talking about. 6 p.m. Eastern time. Birds 365 will come on right out of Dan Cilia's National Football Show. So can't wait to talk to you guys tomorrow at that time. And Johnny Mack, who will be coming off of practice. So he'll be a little tired. It'll be a long day for John McMullen, but he'll have fresh information and a fresh perspective on what he saw down there. So it should be pretty good. John, before we, only 2 minutes left, I want to thank our viewers today, John. We hit something that's very exciting to me. We have 102 likes on the show, John, before we close the live show. So our fans, our viewers showed up today in a big way. Over 100 likes on the show today. Thank you guys. I know it's a bigger crowd, a little bit of a bigger crowd today as we're going to start to ramp up as we get closer to the season, but over 100 likes, Johnny Mac. Thank you guys for liking the show. And if you haven't liked it yet and you enjoyed the show, make sure you like it on your way out the door. We appreciate that very much. How about it, Johnny Mac? 100 plus likes on Birds 365.
Yeah, always appreciate everybody listening, whether you do it in podcast form, listen live, listen on demand, whatever you want to do it, it's there for you. We try to give you the best information possible. I think we got the best educated fan base in the city because there's a lot of competition, but I think we do a good job giving you the straight skinny, as they say.
Absolutely. We give it to you straight. We try and keep you guys as well informed as possible. We have a good dynamic here where John is a very objective reporter of this team, does tremendous work, is always very truthful and calls it how he sees it. And then me, I got, sometimes I wear eagle colored glasses that Johnny Mac calls me out for, but it's a good balance. And it's working well. So we appreciate you all being here. Johnny Mac, good show today, man. Any last things on your mind before you prepare to go down there tomorrow to NovaCare? Camp is here, John. No more
camp is here, yeah.
Camp is here.
It's all logistics for me. I got to get some gas. I got to get up there. I got to do all the everyday crap to get ready for another training camp, which I also have to do the math of how many this is for me, which is way too many for the NFL as a whole. But it's always fun. First day of school, as Isaiah Rodgers tweeted early this morning, first day of school.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. I am very excited for the season here. I think we're gonna have a good year. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to look for as we enter the year. So appreciate it. I want to thank everybody here who's in the chat right now. Dominique Dabney and Twiz, who's always here, and Rashid Mixon, who's always here. Barbara Carroll, James Jones, our resident Commander fan. Everybody's showing out today, John. All of our loyal listeners. Anybody I missed, I'm sorry I missed you. I didn't mean to miss you. There's just a lot of you, so I can't rattle you all off, but we appreciate you being here. Johnny Mac, great show today. I thought our two guests, Bill Colarulo and Scott Grayson, were both exceptional. Both brought great perspectives to the show. So good show today, brother. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Not in 22 hours, Johnny Mac. And what would it be? Would it be 30 hours or 30 hours? I think it'd be 30 hours.
You got me doing math already. It's too early.
I think I hit it. I think it's 30 hours. So 6 p.m. tomorrow, John, we'll be talking on Birds 365.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for listening, everybody. Get ready. Gear up.
Gear up. Season's here, as Johnny Mac mentioned. Thank you all for being here. We will talk to you tomorrow, 6 p.m., everybody. Don't forget, 6 p.m. on Birds 365 tomorrow. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.